So I wanted to make a beautiful classic set of stockings for my family, and what is more classic than velveteen for the holidays? I actually have kits available for this stocking in both red and green colors, although the green looks a little off here in this video, but I promise it's a classic Christmas green color. So first things first, I gotta apply some hand embroidery. That's just how I roll. Although I think these stockings would be pretty without anything too, kind of more of a simple, elegant sort of look, but I wanted all the bling. So I'm using those motifs out of the Flower Letter Embroidery book by the incredible, and I hope I pronounce her name correctly, Elisabetta for Za so for Zop. Oh, she's Italian, and I'm butchering her name. Anywho, I printed off 2 letters onto this water-soluble transfer stabilizer, making sure to line up how I want the letter on the stocking. And if you got this kit, it'll be easier for you to do yours since your pattern is printed on tissue paper. Mine was still being developed. So once I started to get the motif aligned to my liking, then I peeled the sticker off and I put it in an embroidery hoop, and I started those stitches. This stabilizer is a wonderful way to transfer designs when the fabric is too thick to see through it, but it will leave a tiny bit of residue on your needle as you are working those stitches. I don't find it to be a huge deal, and it is only the smallest bit of residue, but it is there. I just want to let y'all know. Just nothing's perfect. It's just one of the cons of this thing. Anywho, I am using flourish, but cotton or border and even floss would be lovely choices too. And again, you don't have to put any embroidery on this stocking for it to turn out beautifully. When I was done with the embroidering, then I moved the stabilizer with water. But a word of caution, do not peel back the stabilizer on velvet or velveteen fabrics. I've never had an issue peeling it back before. I've done it on, even corduroy and such. I've never had an issue with peeling it back, but I learned the hard way that with velveteen, you don't want to peel it back. I have holes in my first attempt, and I actually had to redo this embroidery motif because in this case, the stabilizer took some of the velveteen bits with it, leaving gaps in the fabric, and like I said, I had to redo this motif again. So it's helpful to let the stabilizer soak for a few minutes and then rinse it really well. All of the stabilizer will dissolve without any residue, but it does take a bit of rinsing and massaging with your fingers to achieve this. It's a little bit of a TLC process. So next I cut out the stocking velveteen pieces, lining up the pattern with the straight grain, as well as the lining of the stocking out of this lovely twill fabric. With right sides together, I sewed each of the stockings together. But you will sew, hold on. But when you do the lining, make sure to leave a hole in one of the sides. It does not matter which side, you just want a hole around 3 inches or so in length and width, or however you want to look at it. You want a 3-inch wide hole, okay? Then you can clip the curves, and you will need to clip them in the back of the boot, the arch of that boot, and where it dips at the front of the boot, okay? So you want to clip all the curves there, and you've done a good job clipping the curves when everything relaxes into place when you turn it around to the other side. And I forgot to leave a hole here, so I am doing that now, again, skipping 3 inches and tacking on either side of that, okay? So once I had the lining and velveteen fabric sewn together, then I pressed everything. So pressing velvet and velveteen requires a little bit of TLC. Since many of us don't have an overly priced needleboard, we have to make do as the savages that we are. So first I pressed the top of the seams open, just lightly putting my iron on the fabric, and then I flipped the stocking to the right sides and did the same thing, lightly putting my iron on the fabric. And it can be so helpful to get the seam on the outermost of that curve, like push all the seam forward. Does that make sense? Push it all out so there's no little missing pieces in that curve. I hope that's making sense. So I take this little pointer tool and I push everything so it's all out nice and even and fluid and everything. And I press the velveteen as well as the lining twill. And when I press the velveteen, some people are really gonna turn their noses up that I put my iron directly on the velvet. But like I said, I'm a savage. I don't have that needle board thing, and it is just fine. You don't want to put the entire weight of your iron onto the velveteen, but it's fine putting, at least I think so, it's fine putting your iron on the velvet. Do you want to help? Alright, now I moved on to attaching that lovely Swiss embroidered flounce with these darling little trees. And you can also skip this part of the stocking entirely, but I think they are really pretty. So first I removed the top ½ inch since I liked that proportion better. And you can either gather or put some tiny knife pleats or something, or you can pleat your flounce for smocking. I went the smocking route, pleating 8 half rows. Some people do like to put some lightweight interfacing, say some German interfacing behind the Swiss flounces. That will plump up the pleats a bit, but the pattern doesn't need it, it's just a personal preference. Then I found where the first tree, like the half tree was, so I could match it to the other end. So basically I'm trying to keep that pattern fluid, so I'm taking my first like ½ inch tree-ish, where I get to, so I'm able to join it with another like ½ inch tree and make like a whole tree. Does that make sense? So I pull the pleating threads out on the inside of those ½ inch or so tree marks, and then I tie the ends of the pleating threads together in groups of 2s or 3s. So I will do one side first, and then I will block the flounce so it is 16 inches in length. And then to secure that 16-inch in length, I tie the other side of those pleating threads in groups of 2s or 3s, and now my length is secured. All right, and then from there you're going to line up those half trees. I guess it's really more than a half a tree because you're going to put a half together and put a half together and make a whole tree, so it looks like it's in line with itself. So you're really going to need to have like 3/4 of a tree and 3/4 of a tree, and then have that quarter-ish go into the seam allowance of this French seam that we're making here. I hope all that makes sense. And from there, I adjust those gathers until they are evenly distributed, and I secure them temporarily in place using some freezer paper. I've heard others use a product called tiger tape. I think it's the same concept. I just discovered freezer paper first, but I am eager to try some tiger tape. Anywho, I think though in this case the tiger tape product might actually work a little bit better than my beloved freezer paper, because in this case the pleats go around the corner, like go around the top of the stocking. There's all those curves it has to bend around, and the freezer paper, I think it would be better to like do little strips, maybe ½ inch strips, or you could do the tiger tape. I hope all of that is making sense. So since I didn't think to use ½ inch strips of freezer paper, I added some pins to help my freezer paper stay to the tree, that tree flounce. Does that all make sense? I hope so. Anywho, from there I sewed it to the top of the stocking. Next up, and I would highly suggest doing this embellishment in all of the cases of the stockings, but of course it's sewing, so you do you. Can you hear little Everly? She says yes. So I'm talking about this lovely cording. I added it to the top, and I'm angling the raw edges of the cording off at an angle on the side of the stocking that will have the ribbon hanger. Alright? So another thing, this lip area of the cording embellishment is about, ½ inch wide, 5/8 of an inch wide, something like that. It's not in front of me. And the seam allowance is only 3/8 of an inch. So I pinned the cording a little over the fabric as opposed to cutting it down to that 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And if you're hearing that little bit of jingle, it is Everly keep dropping her baby toy. Anywho, so what I'm trying to say is I looked at this stuff. It looked like it was all woven together. And so since it had that appearance of all being woven together, I didn't like the idea of trimming it down, because I didn't want to unwound on itself, right? I hope that makes any sense. Oh, man. One day I'm going to be fully rested and not under a baby. But I digress. Anywho, once you complete the sewing all the way around, then you should sew the ribbon handle. I forgot all about this ribbon handle, so I had to unpick some stitches, so don't mind that the lining is already attached in the incoherenceness of this video. We are turning ourselves into a hot mess in a hurry. So yeah, get your ribbon sewn down together, and up next, and this is the really exciting part of this whole project, it brings the whole thing together, you're going to attach the lining. So here's the easiest way to wrap your mind around this step. At least it was the easiest way for me. And if my tired self can do it, I have full confidence that you guys can do it at home. So put the lining in your stocking how it should be, with the right side facing out and the toe of the lining inside the toe of the velveteen part. Everything how it should be when it's all finished. You with me? From there, grab the lining and put it right side together, like the top of the lining, put it right side together with the top of that velveteen cording combo. And it's all right. And pin that in place. And that's how you're sure that your lining is how it needs to be with your stocking. Make sense? And from there, I sewed the two together. I'm sewing just on the other side of that cording stuff, and you are not going to be able to sew all the way around. It's going to kind of just bend up on itself. But that's where the little hole, that 3-inch hole from earlier, comes into play. Reach through the hole and pull the entire stocking top through this. This will allow you to have access to finish up that seam at the top. And then this is where I realized my ribbon was missing, so I'm backtracking a little bit to fix my mistake. But voila! Finish up that little hole in the lining by hand, or I guess you could top stitch it down in place. It really depends on which kiddo you're making for. I'm just kidding. Check out this video on sewing an elegant velveteen Christmas dress with a gorgeous lace overlay. Of course, if you have any questions, put them down in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them. And as always, I appreciate y'all for watching and I hope to catch y'all next time.